People, music, news, events, business, sports. This is Caxton Radio.
Now then, joining me on the line, hopefully all being well with technology working at the other end of the phone, is a man who I remember working, when I say with, we worked in the same building, on the same floor, but in different studios back in the day when I was involved with Highveld Stereo with 94.7. And Douglas Kruger, you, if I remember correctly, in those days were doing the very early show on 702. Have I remembered that right?
Paul, the most gruesome timing you can imagine. And just to throw a spanner into the works, I also did Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from, I think it was, if I remember right, what was it, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock or something down those lines, which just meant that for a couple of years, you can't regulate your sleeping pattern.
Oh, no.
I lived as a zombie. But yes, you're dead right.
So not even Monday through Friday. It was the even days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. How strange.
Yeah, they really did their best to kill me. But I'm still alive and kicking, and we're still talking, and it's great to hear your voice on air.
And life is good. Indeed, it's been a while. I think I'm probably going back at least a decade, possibly even longer. But we won't bring up the past and give our age away. Suffice to say, I received an email probably about 6 weeks ago from a lovely lady who is involved with Toastmasters, asking me whether I would have any interest in finding out about Toastmasters, who they are, what they do, how you can get involved. And when we finally came to putting the interview together, which we're doing right now, whose name was thrown at me? Well, none other than yours, Douglas Kruger, who is a best-selling author, Hall of Fame speaker, and a man who's doing all sorts of things aside from being a speaker and part of Toastmasters. What are you doing to earn a living these days, if I may ask? Because many things have changed.
It's a question. It's a question I would have answered differently in January of this year. I am a full-time professional speaker, and that really is to the credit of 20 years worth of Toastmasters. But yeah, when the lockdown hit, the speaking industry and the events industry pretty much died on its feet. Thank goodness, though, I have a monetized YouTube channel. I have the books and audio books and so forth, and that's carried me through. And I actually had quite an incredible story right at the onset of lockdown. Penguin Publishers asked me if I could write a book on how small businesses could survive the coronavirus crisis. And they said, but here's the catch, you have to do it in 2 weeks flat. I kind of mentally looked at the mountain that I had to climb, tried not to think about it too much, responded yes, and got it done. And it was a remarkable thing. The team on that side were exceptionally helpful. A lot of people provided ideas. And the book was then subsequently accepted by the London publishers and sent out all around the world. So, thank goodness for that one.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I have to ask, without going into details of what your bank balance is writing...
Well, I'll give you an answer to that one, which is I am currently shooting as rich guy. By which I mean I don't know.
Oh, all right.
Here's how that works. Every 6 months or so, the publishers here will recuperate profits from the publishers overseas. And, of course, they have to do all of their accounting and so forth and send it through. And it hasn't happened yet, so I don't know.
Because I've spoken to...
On the upside, I hope it's helped someone out there. I mean, the whole point was to give people lateral ways of thinking about staying above water and actually making sure their business survives. So it may or may not have done me some good. Hopefully it's done some good out there in the world.
Absolutely. And I think aside from being able to help others, there is something I'm sure that is incredibly satisfying about getting a book out there, as it were. It's just, I know in my experience, having interviewed many an author and spoken to many people who've published books, in many cases, it really is a project of passion more than one that's going to put a lot of money in the bank. But
very much so. It's a very personal thing.
Sure.
And actually, one of the funny things, just linking it back to our Toastmasters topic, is things that I learned from the speaking and presenting world are incredibly useful in the world of writing as well. And I'll give you just a practical example of that. Early on in my Toastmasters career, one of the more experienced members of a Toastmasters club gave me the simple advice. He said, the best speaking, the best communication is this simple. Make a point, tell a story. Make another point, tell another story. And if you go and dissect things like, say, a Malcolm Gladwell bestseller, it's the same formula. You take a core idea and then you make it come alive for the reader. So there are an amazing amount of transmissible skills from Toastmasters to other spheres of life.
Well, as we speak, I've received a WhatsApp that's come through from a dear friend of mine, Graham Burnett. I was in the military with him many years ago, and he says, our company's been privileged to have had Douglas mentor us over the years.
Oh, wow.
Especially our MD. I'm not entirely sure what company that is. I'm sure you deal with many of them, but good to know that WhatsApp has just come in.
I profoundly apologize for any damage done.
Well, they keep inviting you back, seemingly, so you're obviously doing a good job. Toastmasters. That, as you say, in essence, is what the conversation is about today. But Toastmasters, am I right in assuming that this is, in essence, a group of people who enjoy speaking, and obviously the experience level ranges from someone who's perhaps never held a microphone or stood in front of a group of people, right through to someone who, like yourself, has built a career out of it for a number of decades, in your case, more than 20 years. Is that kind of summing up Toastmasters?
I'd alter one thing. Yeah, absolutely. It really is about public speaking is the heart and soul of it. And it also focuses on leadership skills and to some extent, even things like management skills. But public speaking really is the heart and soul. And I think the one little addendum I'd make there is it's not necessarily for people who love public speaking. In fact, in many ways, it's for people who can't stand it or are terrified about it. And, we often joke about these surveys that get done where people ask, what is your number one fear in the universe? What do you most fear? And often death will come second and public speaking will top the list.
Yowza.
And, for that reason, it shows it's a very real and very pervasive fear, but we have to do it all the time. It's such an integral part of our lives. Even in lockdown, presenting via Zoom, those core skills are incredibly important to your career, to your business success, to your brand, and so forth. But yes, that's what it does in a nutshell. And there's some interesting research from, just thinking out loud, a couple of years ago, Forbes magazine asked the question, what is the number one skill you can learn to advance your career? And that is across industries, across different forms of business. And they came to the answer, to the conclusion, it's public speaking and presenting. It's the heart and soul of everything. It's persuasion, it's presence, it's brand building. And of course, then you put those two ideas against each other. On the one hand, it's the thing people fear most. On the other hand, it's one of the greatest keys to personal and career success. So Toastmasters is an answer to that conundrum. And they're very, very gentle, which I think is one of the great upsides. They know you're scared. They know you don't know how to do it. The whole point is to help you through that process without, scaring the living daylights out of you.
Where did it all start for you? Because it goes without say that you have a lovely, dare I use the term, radio voice. You speak very well, you enunciate, you speak clearly. But I'm guessing that isn't something that just happened. You've worked on that,
absolutely.
And you've been groomed.
It's absolutely trained.
Well, I was just going to say, were you someone who started out being fearful and trembling at the thought of standing in front of a group of people? Or were you one of those who somehow always had the knack, as it were, of making a joke in the classroom or standing up at a family function and saying a few words without sweating at all? Where did you all start?
The first one, and more so than you can imagine. I was desperately introverted and incredibly shy. I've always had a love of words and language, and my goal had always been to be a writer. But, if you put me in front of, say, three human beings, I would sort of shrink and shrivel. And what actually happened was Florida Toastmasters, my local club, came and did what they call a youth development or youth leadership course in my high school at the time. And what I discovered about this, I kind of ended up on that course by default. It's not even something that I sought out. But I discovered this wonderful thing of the fact that you could go backstage, you could close the world out and prepare your thoughts and prepare the best and strongest representation of yourself. Then you could effectively step forward onto the stage and show the world this organized, stronger version of yourself. And I found as a result of that, firstly, it was addictive, but secondly, it dragged me out of my shell to the extent that not only am I no longer an introvert, I'm quite far the other way. And I think it's made a huge difference over the course of my life.
And you put that purely down to Toastmasters and the world that opened up for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, very, very much so. I was also very lucky in the sense that it's very complementary with the writing. I wasn't even aware that you can make a full-time living out of being a professional speaker when I entered the Toastmasters Club. But as a result of entering some of their contests and making some progress there, I was sort of introduced into this world of professional speaking, and I've now been doing it for the better part of 2 decades. So, whether you want to make an actual dedicated career out of speaking, or like you said earlier, whether you're just, kind of wanting to get over a fear, learn how to present a little better, it's an incredibly good way to go. And the whole program is structured to help you with that.
Graham has replied to say the company he is with is called Cornerstone Performance Solutions. So I'm sure you know them well.
Absolutely. Great organization based in Randburg, yeah.
Your local Toastmasters, you mentioned them as well. Did you say that's the Florida branch, Douglas?
Yes. If, anywhere that you find yourself in South Africa, you can simply jump onto Google and type in Toastmasters Club in the name of your area. I would recommend my club. It's a strong one. It's based in, it's the Florida Toastmasters Club. They're meeting virtually at the moment, but obviously we're hoping it goes back to live meetings quite soon. And I find, the first question people tend to ask is, do they tell me what I have to talk about? And the reality is no. If you attended a Florida Toastmasters Club meeting, the first one you go to, you can simply sit there and watch what happens and see if you like it. And when you discover that you do, what they'll do is they will sort of sign you up with the manuals and all of the processes and procedures that you need. And essentially it goes like this. You'll have an assignment that requires something basic of you, like focusing on your voice, or focusing on your body language, or focusing on developing and delivering humor. And you can decide what topic you want to speak on, so long as it does that. You deliver your short presentation, they give you some feedback, and then you progress on to the next one. And that's the whole thing in a very quick nutshell.
I can imagine, though, that would be fairly intimidating for someone who isn't used to speaking in front of perhaps family and friends, never mind a group of strangers, to be given a topic and be told, here we go.
I'll give you a weird insight there. It turns out it's easier to do it in front of strangers than family and friends. And it genuinely is the case. I still, to this day, struggle to speak in front of groups of people who know me well.
Really?
I find that much more intimate. Yeah. In fact, and this surprises most people who are not familiar with the world of speaking. The easiest audience in the world is 1,000 strangers in an auditorium.
Yeah, I can relate to that. In fact, I think when it comes to
totally
radio...
anonymous, and you've got a prepared speech.
There we go. We're in an interesting position being on radio, because I also find that sitting in a studio talking into a microphone where you may have an audience of 1,000, you may have an audience of 1,000,000, that is far easier than standing, as you just said now, giving a presentation to maybe 20 executives of a corporate. So I don't think it's really...
Funny enough, they teach radio technique to Toastmasters as well. One quick example of that is, from experience that you speak in the first person as if to a single person who's listening in a car.
Yep.
Rather than say, all of you listeners out there today, you say, would you like to?
Yep.
And it's that sort of one-on-one. And the strange thing is, if you're standing up in front of 3,000 people in an auditorium, that works as well. And it's these little things that you learn along the way, all of which cumulatively add up to what looks like a very professional, very approachable presenter.
I really wish more people who are on the radio at the moment got that memo. Radio 101. It is one person speaking to another one person.
It's a one-on-one conversation.
Not all of us.
And Paul, maybe I'm going a little sort of into depth here, but if that kind of fascinates you, there's a great book on writing and communication by a psychologist named Steven Pinker, and it's called The Sense of Style. You don't even need to read the entire book. It's the first 50 pages, but he goes into how you approach writing in order to become a best-selling author, and or how you approach speaking. And he makes very simple points like that. It's, make a point, tell a story, make it come alive for them, and speak as if to a single person in a conversational tone. Easy, learnable things.
Lots of changes, lots of things have happened. Books are written. I guess many of the basics stay the same. But something that has happened with COVID is, I think people are analyzing how they do business. More and more people now are operating in a virtual world, no longer having face-to-face meetings. As you said earlier, more and more people are using packages like Zoom and Skype and other such things. Do you think that something like Toastmasters would be beneficial from a business perspective for someone who's wanting to improve those skills?
Undoubtedly, undeniably. It really is about how to structure your thinking. So the emphasis is less on the medium of communication than it is on you. It's about how to take your idea, your thought, your proposal, and organize it and deliver it in the strongest possible fashion. And it's amazing how much of a difference that can make. I mean, if you've got a basic sales pitch, or if you're trying to get your team on board with an idea, the way in which you deliver it can change everything. It can go from sort of dropping something into a vacuum to a scenario in which you engage people, they see the sense in it, and you can deliver it in such a compelling way that it appears that there is no alternative but what you have just suggested. So the power of persuasion is just an incredible thing, and this is really how to do it. It's how to come across well, it's how to engage interest, and it's also how to keep your messages short and concise. some of the worst presentations are the long ones. So how do you do a good short one?
Yeah, less is more, to use a cliche. Douglas, I'm very keen to find out more about Toastmasters. I would imagine that there are websites or a social media presence, whether it's specifically for your Florida branch or for Toastmasters in South Africa in general?
Yeah, they are worldwide. You can find a club in any city, any major city in the world. In South Africa, what I would recommend is simply jumping onto Google and typing Toastmasters Club and the name of your area. If you'd like to check out my club, it's Toastmasters Florida Club, but you'll want to go to the second result because the first one will take you to Florida in the United States, and that's a bit of a commute.
Yeah.
But very easy to find, and you don't have to pay to attend your first meeting. You can simply go there, have a look, meet the folks. They're all very friendly, and see what it's like.
And are there any commonalities? If you have a look, I'm part of a number of different groups, and there's kind of a common thread for most things. What would you say is the common thread for Toastmasters? Because we've already established that this isn't necessarily a group of people who love to speak. In many cases, it's people who have a fear of speaking. So what would you say is the common ground for people who would join Toastmasters?
Well, I tell you, a good way to answer that is actually to contrast it against a complementary organization. In South Africa, we also have the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa. And the two, there are many people, myself included, who are members of both. And the way of looking at it is Toastmasters is the mechanics of speaking. It's the how-to. Whereas the Professional Speakers Association is really the business end of being a coach or speaker, trainer, presenter, or so forth. So both are organized in a sort of an orbit around those industries, but they come at it from different places. And while you will find that a great number of people who are professional speakers have had Toastmasters training, it's not necessarily the case that Toastmasters will tend to go to the PSA. The majority of people who join Toastmasters are really doing it for their own internal career goals, their own personal development, and are not necessarily looking at taking it all the way. However, if you do want to go all the way, they have a World Championships of Public Speaking every year. That started off being an annual event in the United States. It's now hosted all around the world. And the Professional Speakers Association likewise has meetings that kind of move around the globe. A couple of years ago, I had the honor of speaking at one in New Zealand. And, what a wonderful thing to do. I wouldn't have gotten there had it not been for the whole world of public speaking.
More and more people, just to wrap up, more and more people now questioning what they are doing, revisiting their career and their job choice, as it were, doing something different. In many cases, people falling into things that they never thought they would do to earn a living. What would your advice be, Douglas, for someone who is listening to this now and thinking, wow, I reckon I could earn a living through being a speaker? I would imagine, depending on what level you're at, this could be a journey that could take you 3 months, it could take you 5 years. But what would you recommend is a good starting point, other than the obvious one of becoming involved with Toastmasters? If someone's got a bright idea of generating an income and earning a living by speaking, where's a good place to start?
Okay, well, fantastic. The platform skills, definitely Toastmasters, and I'll give you a sort of a right and a wrong way of going about that, which I think kind of illustrates a good response. The wrong way of going about it is to think of yourself as the spectacular speaker, lights, camera, action, and you yourself are the product. It turns out that the way in which you monetize a speaking career is really about something other than the speaking itself. So it tends to be whether you are a political commentator, a coach, a guru, or an educator, it's always about what people want to learn or how they want to improve. Now, speaking becomes one mechanism, one delivery route for that information. But you can and should also have, say, the YouTube channel, the Instagram, the books, the courses, the guides, the seminars, the podcasts, and so forth. And this year in particular has shown us that there are strong reasons to have those multiple streams of income, because one of them, such as the speaking, can simply die on its feet or be legally forbidden. So there are different ways of monetizing such a career, and there are organizations and groups of people who are good at teaching others how to do that.
Wonderful. Douglas, I'm going to leave it there and say thank you very much for your time in joining us. As you've said, the best thing to do is to just hop on Google and do a search for Toastmasters in your local area. But then if anybody would like to make contact with you, have you got a website, or would you like to give your contact details?
Most welcome to. My website is just my name, douglaskruger.com. And I also have a little YouTube site in which I give away sort of tips for entrepreneurs pretty much every weekday. And if you just had to search for Douglas Kruger on YouTube, it will bring that up as well. And I mean, that's an example of exactly what we were talking about. So the YouTube channel, having reached a certain number of subscribers, is also monetized. And that becomes part of my own professional speaking career, and it's actually an income stream.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Last question for you. It's a personal question, and that is radio. Sure. I know that you obviously left 702. Are you doing any other things in radio? You dabbling in that medium at all?
You know, I find myself on radio every now and then, but generally just reacting to questions. I'm never on the other side of the microphone. But I must say, I understand how that bug gets into your bloodstream, and it is very, very addictive. It's actually something I ideally miss.
Okay. Well, then we should talk. We will keep in touch.
Good stuff, Paul. Lovely.
Lovely.
And just a passing thought on Toastmasters. You don't join, because you love public speaking. Generally, most people join because they don't. Don't let the fear get in your way. Those folks know what they're doing. They'll help you do it.
Some great advice. I think that's the case with many things that you can grow to love. It can all stem from a point of fear of the unknown, and fear of failure, and fear of uncertainty, and all of those good things.
Absolutely, and you'd be astonished at how much of an impact it has on different parts of your life.
I'm sure.
It's a career builder, it's a confidence builder. It's just an all-around good idea. It's one of those things I actually wish that we could implement in high schools. I think it's kind of it's conspicuously missing from the high school curriculum.
Very much so. Like many other things, but I guess talking about the curriculum and what goes on at school will leave for another day. I'm checking out your YouTube channel at the moment as we speak. Welcome to the daily show about wealth and expert positioning. Douglas Kruger is author of several best-selling business books with Penguin, including titles like Own Your Industry, How to Position Yourself as an Expert, and Is Your Thinking Keeping You Poor? With 85.3 thousand subscribers. That's pretty cool. I hate it when people say for South Africa, but we do need to keep in mind that we are a substantially smaller market than many territories. So that really is phenomenal. Well done. And I look forward to watching some of your videos.
Much appreciated, Paul.
Lovely. Douglas, thanks very much for the chat. And your website, just to confirm, www.douglaskruger.com. Yeah. Magic.
That's
Douglas, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Only a pleasure. Have a great afternoon.
Awesome. We'll chat again.
Great stuff.
Cheers for now.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye-bye. Cheers, mate. Cheers. Bye. Douglas Kruger, as I said, I remember working alongside him when he was doing the early mornings on 702. Such a lovely voice. There are some people you can hear and speak to, and they just have a voice for radio, and he's one of them. So Douglas saying that he would love to get involved in radio. Maybe there's a phone call that needs to be made to see if we could put something together here on Caxton Radio. Get Douglas involved. That sounds pretty cool. Once again, if you'd like to find out more, you can just Google Toastmasters and the region that you're in, and hopefully that Google search will bring up something. And you can find out more about Douglas Kruger and who he is and what he does by getting onto his website, douglaskruger.com.
Caxton Radio. More local, more often.